Wait, what? Why is that my reaction? I'll explain very soon, even though I first want to clarify how nothing I say is financial advice, and even though I am not telling anyone to do anything, this is purely my perspective. But did you know that it was recently announced how there was an Avalanche ETF that just went live on the New York Stock Exchange? And of course, I'm talking about Bitwise's Avalanche ETF. Now, why do I have the reaction of like, wait, what? The reason why is because we've already seen the Grayscale Avalanche ETF. We've already seen VanEck Avalanche ETF. And again, VanEck and Grayscale's Avalanche ETF is on NASDAQ. So now I see Bitwise's Avalanche ETF on the New York Stock Exchange. That's pretty impressive. Now, people like to tell me, well, with all of this, though, why is AVAX still at below $10? Well, it's because I think that the overall change in sentiment hasn't really been there yet when it comes to space. But regardless of that, I think that if anything, again, that recent news that I saw in regard to the Avalanche ETF on the New York Stock Exchange, I think, again, that if anything showcases that more and more entities out there are starting to care about Avalanche. Because a lot of people like to tell me, well, there's so many layer one blockchains, who cares about this? But at the same time, though, if something like Grayscale, something like VanEck, if those archetypes do care about Avalanche, I think it may showcase something. Because usually they don't really care about a project that's not doing the best in terms of the fundamentals. It usually doesn't happen because usually they have a team, they think about decisions before they make it. It's not like it's just one person just calling all the actions like that. Usually that isn't the case. But when I see that right there when it comes to Avalanche, I think it might indicate just how they might view Avalanche as a layer one blockchain, which I do share some of those sentiments in a sense where I am still a fan of it. I like its scalability. I like its speed also on top of that. I don't think the gas fees are a complete issue. And those are like the three traits that I often look for when it comes to a layer one blockchain. Is Avalanche perfect? No. But as a layer one blockchain, if I see those three key traits, basically, I'm usually a fan. That's my mindset, even though I am not telling anyone to do anything. And if anything, with all of this going on when it comes to Avalanche, and yet AVAX is still below $10, I mean, would I really complain? My intent is the dollar cost average. I don't think I would. Now, the thing is this. People like to tell me, well, take a look at what SanDisk did as of late. And of course, I'm talking about the stock SanDisk. Of course, it's been absolutely fantastic as of late. People like to say, take a look at the S&P 500. Take a look at this other stock or whatever. They keep telling me all this, right? But to me, I feel like, okay, that's cool. Of course, it's very impressive. But I'm not worried about that. That's not my concern. My concern is me just focusing on myself and believing in the space that I feel like I'm already dedicated to anyways, and also towards a space that I feel more comfortable in anyways, because I've been researching the projects that I'm a fan of for quite some time now. Like, for instance, I like Avalanche. I also like other projects too, like the Internet Computer. I take a look at Zebic. I take a look at Onyx, Jasmy, and so on. I've already researched those type of projects. My intent as of right now isn't to randomly chase other trends or other things that I'm not familiar with. That is not my mindset. Maybe some other people have been researching that for quite some time and then they were a part of it. That's totally awesome. And it's totally cool if they did do that. But I didn't do that, right? So I don't want to focus on things that I didn't care about for quite a while and try to chase a trend later on. That's not my style. And if anything, if we see the S&P 500 doing so fantastic, if we see some stocks out there doing so fantastic and all that, if that is the case and this space is still kind of lagging behind, what happens if in a random hypothetical, some of the sentiment starts entering into this space? That's kind of my mindset. I am not into chasing waves, so to speak. I'm into anticipating waves. Like, for instance, if I'm surfing in the ocean, I'd prefer to anticipate a wave as opposed to chase it, because I can't chase a wave that's like 80 feet away. I'm not Aquaman, right? I can't do those type of moves. I'm not Jason Momoa, right? So my mindset is when it comes to like surfing, even though I don't surf, but that's just kind of an analogy that I would have. But I'm saying if, let's say, I was surfing, I would rather anticipate a wave, personally, in my perspective. And I kind of view it the same when it comes to the space. But again, I am not a surfer, so this is not surfing advice. But yeah, besides that point, I just want to clarify that. But also, if I take a look at it, when it comes to Avalanche, people like to say, well, again, it being below $10 is not a good thing. Well, what happens if, let's say, AVAX just maybe returned back to where it was in September 2025? We're over 3 times lower than that. In September at one point, AVAX was around $35. In which case, people like to say, well, if it goes back to that, isn't it boring? They like to ask me that. Well, first of all, if we take into consideration during the cycle, $35 was not the peak when it comes to AVAX. We've seen AVAX actually back in 2024 reach around $60. If AVAX just maybe hypothetically in a make-believe scenario returned to around $35, even if that is the case, why wouldn't I find it boring? Well, the reason is because if, let's say, like a stock maybe, right, did that type of move, or maybe the S&P 500 or something like that, people would already think it's like one of the most fantastic things of all time. Like a lot of people would probably post about it on social media and stuff. Like I've seen that happen before. But my mindset is this. If like something being around 3 times lower than 4 and then maybe it reached that point, if that's considered so impressive in other markets, if let's say gold did that or silver or whatever, a lot of people would really post about it, right, in a random hypothetical. But if it's impressive for those other markets, suddenly it becomes unimpressive, like not impressive basically, when it comes to this space. I don't think about it that way. Like for instance, for me, if something is lower by around 3 times when compared to where it once was before, and maybe it went back to that, it almost doesn't even really matter in which specific market that is. It's like, for instance, a BMW is still a BMW. Either it's in the garage or it's outside. Now, personally for me, I love Toyota. That's the brand that I really love. But I'm saying it's just an example, right? The location of that BMW in this case, either it's parked inside or outside, it's still a BMW. So people like to say, well, if AVAX went back to around $35, we're, around 3 times lower than that. That's not impressive. But my kind of reaction is, wait, if it's not impressive here, why is it suddenly impressive in other markets? So if I find it impressive in other markets, for me, I still find it impressive here if it could maybe do that. Now, that's a big if, right? Who knows if AVAX could ever even do that? But AVAX did reach, again, around $35 back in September. And we're not even a year removed from that, right? That was less than a year ago. Keep in mind, just in September. Was September an altcoin season, by the way, in 2025? I highly doubt it. Like some people out there thought that, of course, the sentiment was better back then than right now, which I completely agree, but I don't think that was an altcoin season. That's just my perspective. Again, if AVAX could go back to that, like I have zero complaints, but this is just, again, my mindset. Keep in mind, AVAX has around 160,000 holders. That's pretty impressive, again, around 160,000 holders. It's currently ranked 26th in the world in terms of market cap within this space. It's pretty massive, in my opinion. Has a pretty massive community, has the historical notoriety. It's pretty popular. A project of this size, people like to tell me sometimes, oh, it's just randomly going to become relevant. But then they like to compare it to another project out there that's ranked like 782nd or something like that. And they tell me that, oh, that project is randomly going to make it, but this one hypothetically won't. Well, it's like, so if a project, let's say in a random make-believe scenario, has less holders, less historical notoriety, and less of a kind of presence, is suddenly going to make it? Why wouldn't a project that has way more holders, way more fans, way more going on fundamentally for it, why would that suddenly not make it? That's kind of my mindset. So when it comes to AVAX, as of right now, I'm still staying patient, but that's all I can do. However, I am personally dollar cost averaging only once a month into the projects that I'm a fan of. I just want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a very nice day. I'm out. Peace. Bye.